Nashville appears on every list. Best cities to move to, best cities for young professionals, best cities for real estate investment, best cities for music lovers, for foodies, for remote workers, for families leaving California. Nashville is on all of them. It has been on all of them for 6 consecutive years, and that is precisely the problem. When a city appears on every list for 6 consecutive years, 2 things have happened by the time you are reading the list. The first is that the city has genuinely become better. More restaurants, more cultural infrastructure, more employment diversity, more of the things that made it worth listing in the first place. The second is that the price has adjusted to reflect all of that improvement, which means the financial case for the person arriving today is fundamentally different from the financial case for the person who arrived when the city first appeared on the list. Both things are true about Nashville in 2026. It is a genuinely better city than it was in 2019. It is also a significantly more expensive city than it was in 2019. And the interaction between those 2 facts produces a picture that is more complex than any list captures. Because there is not one Nashville. There are 3. And the financial case for moving to Nashville in 2026 depends entirely on which of those 3 Nashvilles you are actually talking about. This video is the analysis that should exist before you make any decision about Nashville. Not a lifestyle guide, not a ranking. A financial and quality of life breakdown of 3 distinct markets that share a name, share a zip code structure, and produce completely different outcomes for the people who move to them. We are going to cover all 3 with specific numbers. We are going to look at Nashville through 2 lenses simultaneously. The investor lens, which cares about cap rates, appreciation trajectory, and cash flow viability, and the family lens, which cares about school districts, neighborhood safety, community infrastructure, and what daily life actually looks like for a household with children. Both lenses matter. And in Nashville in 2026, they do not always point in the same direction. Let me start with some history, because you cannot understand Nashville 2026 without understanding what happened between 2019 and 2023. In January 2019, the median home price in the Nashville Metropolitan Statistical Area was approximately $259,000. Nashville was widely understood to be an undervalued market with strong fundamentals. No Tennessee state income tax, a diversified economy anchored by healthcare, music industry, and an emerging tech sector, growing migration inflows from high-cost metros, and a quality-of-life story that was becoming increasingly visible nationally. The people who understood those fundamentals in 2019 and acted on them did extraordinarily well. A $259,000 median home in Nashville in January 2019, purchased with 20% down, had a principal and interest payment at the prevailing rate of approximately 4.5% of approximately $1,050 per month. Total housing cost, including taxes and insurance, was approximately $1,400 per month. At that price and that rate, Nashville cash flowed. It cash flowed clearly and consistently for almost any reasonable rental configuration in almost any neighborhood. By the peak of the Nashville market in mid-2022, the median home price had reached approximately $485,000. The city that was available for $259,000 in 2019 had appreciated 87% in 3.5 years. The people who bought in 2019 had nearly doubled their money on paper. The people who arrived in 2022, having read the same articles that justified the 2019 buyers, were paying 87% more for the same asset. By early 2026, the Nashville median has settled at approximately $410,000, reflecting a modest correction from the 2022 peak and a stabilization that suggests the market has found its current level. The appreciation from 2019 to 2026 is approximately 58%. That is real and significant. It also means that every financial calculation you make about Nashville today, the down payment math, the cash flow analysis, the savings rate improvement from moving here, is calibrated to $410,000, not $259,000. This distinction is the entire argument of the first section of this video, and it is the distinction that most Nashville content ignores because it complicates the narrative. Nashville is good, Nashville has been good for years. But the Nashville that is good in 2026 is a different market than the Nashville that was good in 2019. And whether it is still good enough for your specific situation in 2026 depends on which part of Nashville you are in and what you are trying to accomplish there. Let us now go through the three Nashvilles. Nashville 1 is the urban core and the established inner neighborhoods. This is the Nashville that appears in every article, every food magazine feature, every music industry profile. The Gulch, the neighborhood immediately south of downtown, that transformed from an industrial wasteland into one of the most photographed urban districts in the American South. 12 South, the tree-lined residential street that became a national Instagram location with its independent boutiques and restaurants. In East Nashville, the artist neighborhood across the Cumberland River that spent a decade gentrifying and arrived, by 2021 or so, at the premium end of the Nashville market. These neighborhoods are genuinely excellent. The Gulch has walkability scores that approach what you would find in major coastal cities. 12 South has a restaurant and retail density that would not feel out of place in Brooklyn or Capitol Hill in Seattle. East Nashville has the kind of organic neighborhood character that cities spend decades and billions trying to manufacture and frequently fail. All of this is real, and it matters. What else is real is the price. The Gulch, in early 2026, has median condo prices approaching $550,000 to $650,000 for a 1 or 2 bedroom unit. 12 South has median single-family home prices of approximately $680,000 to $750,000. East Nashville, the neighborhood that was the original discovery play of the Nashville wave, now has median single-family prices in the $470,000 to $550,000 range, representing a market that has already fully matured through its appreciation cycle. For an investor, Nashville 1 is essentially uninvestable at current prices and current interest rates. The cap rates in the Gulch and 12 South range from approximately 3.2 to 3.8%. At 6.5% financing, those cap rates produce negative cash flow on any reasonable rental model. You are not buying these properties for income. You are buying them for appreciation and lifestyle. Appreciation in a market that has already experienced 87% appreciation in 5 years is a bet with significantly different risk parameters than the same bet in 2019. It might continue. It might not. The cash flow protection that makes real estate investment resilient in down markets simply does not exist at these price levels and these cap rates. For a family arriving from an expensive coastal city, Nashville 1 offers the most immediate lifestyle satisfaction and the least financial transformation. If you are paying $4,000 a month in rent in San Francisco, and you move to the Gulch and pay $2,800 a month in a comparable unit, you have improved your financial situation. But the improvement is modest compared to what Nashville can offer. And the path to homeownership in Nashville 1, at current prices, requires a down payment of $110,000 to $130,000 on a median property, a threshold that takes several years to reach even with a strong savings rate. Nashville 1 is the city that everyone is picturing when they say Nashville. It is real, it is excellent, and it is largely bought. The window that existed for this version of the city closed somewhere between 2020 and 2022. Nashville 2 is what we might call the established premium suburbs. Franklin and Brentwood specifically, which are the 2 most frequently recommended suburban communities in the broader Nashville area, and which have earned their reputation through consistent delivery of what families with children want: excellent school districts, safe streets, beautiful neighborhoods with mature trees and well-maintained parks, and a retail and restaurant infrastructure that has improved dramatically over the past decade, and a commute to Nashville proper that is manageable. Williamson County, which encompasses Franklin and Brentwood, has public school proficiency rates that consistently rank in the top 3% of all school districts in the United States. This is not a local claim or a marketing assertion. The standardized test score data is publicly available, and it shows Williamson County schools performing at a level that most parents coming from expensive coastal cities would be genuinely surprised by. In 84% proficiency on state reading and math assessments is the kind of number that appears in the top handful of school districts in the country. If you are Stephanie, if you are a parent whose primary concern in a relocation decision is the educational environment for your children, Williamson County is among the 5 strongest arguments for any geographic move in the United States right now. The school quality is real. The community infrastructure for families is real. The physical environment of tree-lined suburban streets, youth sports leagues, community events, and the general texture of family life is genuinely excellent. The price reflects all of that. The median single-family home in Franklin in early 2026 is approximately $620,000. In Brentwood, which has an even stronger reputation and correspondingly higher prices, the median is closer to $720,000. A 20% down payment on a Franklin median home is $124,000. A 20% down payment on a Brentwood median is $144,000. For the investor, Nashville 2 presents the same fundamental challenge as Nashville 1, only slightly less severe. Cap rates in Franklin and Brentwood on single-family homes range from approximately 3.8 to 4.4%. Negative cash flow at current financing rates is still the baseline outcome. Appreciation has been strong, and the quality of the market argues for continued price stability, if not continued appreciation. But as an income-generating investment vehicle, these markets do not work at current prices for someone using conventional financing. For the family, Nashville 2 delivers what it promises at a price that is substantially lower than comparable markets on the coasts. A $620,000 home in Franklin with a comparable school district to Williamson County would cost approximately $1.2 million in a comparable suburb of San Francisco, approximately $900,000 in a comparable suburb of Boston, and approximately $800,000 in a comparable suburb of Washington, D.C. And the premium for Williamson County schools, relative to coastal alternatives, is real and defensible. The question is whether the family arriving in Nashville 2 has the capital to reach the entry point. For a couple earning a combined income of $180,000, moving from San Francisco to Franklin, the after-tax income improvement is approximately $22,000 per year from the tax differential alone. Their housing cost at a $2,800 monthly rent in a Franklin apartment before purchase is significantly lower than their San Francisco baseline. But the path to buying in Franklin still requires accumulating $124,000 in down payment, which at an improved savings rate of $40,000 per year takes approximately 3 years. Franklin is achievable for the right profile. It is not the fastest path. Now we get to Nashville 3. And this is the part of the analysis that almost nobody is making publicly, with specific numbers, for someone who is actually trying to make a decision in 2026. Nashville 3 is the outer ring of the Nashville metropolitan area, specifically Murfreesboro to the southeast, Hendersonville to the northeast, Gallatin further northeast, and Smyrna adjacent to Murfreesboro. These are cities in their own right, not bedroom communities in the pejorative sense, but established municipalities with their own downtowns, their own economic bases, their own community identities, and their own school districts. They happen to sit within 30 to 45 minutes of Nashville's urban core, and they happen to be priced at a level that reflects neither their quality nor their trajectory. Murfreesboro is the largest city in Rutherford County and the home of Middle Tennessee State University, a 32,000-student institution that anchors the local economy with employment, spending, and the cultural vitality that university towns consistently deliver. The median home price in Murfreesboro in early 2026 is approximately $345,000. A 20% down payment is $69,000. Let that number land for a moment. $69,000 to buy a median home in a city with a university anchor, 30 minutes from one of the fastest-growing metro areas in the American South, in a state with zero income tax, with school districts that consistently outperform national averages. $69,000 compared to the $240,000 required in San Francisco, the $160,000 in Denver, the $110,000 in Austin, and the $124,000 in Franklin, Tennessee, 30 minutes up the road. The math for Nashville 3 is as compelling as any market we have analyzed in this channel. Let us build it specifically. A professional couple moving from a coastal city with a combined income of $175,000. In Tennessee, the state income tax is 0. After federal income tax and FICA on $175,000 combined, their take-home is approximately $123,000 per year, or approximately $10,250 per month. Rent for a 3-bedroom in a good Murfreesboro neighborhood, approximately $1,550 per month. Transportation for 2 cars in suburban Tennessee, approximately $500 per month combined. Groceries for a family of 4 in Tennessee, approximately $700 per month. Utilities, internet, phone, $350. Healthcare and personal expenses, $400. A total essential monthly spending, approximately $3,550. Monthly savings capacity, approximately $6,700. Annual savings rate, approximately 46% of gross income. At $67,000 in annual savings, the $69,000 down payment is reached in approximately 12.5 months, 1 year. The same couple in San Francisco, earning the same $175,000 combined, saves approximately $22,000 per year at a realistic savings rate in that cost environment. The down payment on a San Francisco median home, $240,000, takes approximately 11 years. 12.5 months versus 11 years. Nashville 3 versus San Francisco. Same people, same income, same goals, completely different geometry. After purchasing in Murfreesboro at $345,000, at 6.5% on a 30-year mortgage with 20% down, the total monthly housing cost, including taxes and insurance, is approximately $1,980. Less than their rent was. Their savings rate after purchase does not collapse. It actually improves slightly as the housing cost drops below their rental baseline. They are building equity, maintaining a high savings rate, and living in a city with a university, a manageable commute to a major metro, 0 state income tax, and school districts that outperform the national average. Now let me add the investor dimension to Nashville 3, because the picture looks different from that lens than it does from the family relocation lens, and both perspectives matter in this analysis. Cap rates in Murfreesboro in early 2026 range from approximately 5.8 to 6.8%, depending on the specific property and neighborhood. On a $300,000 duplex in a good Murfreesboro location, the gross yield is approximately $18,000 to $20,000 annually in rents. Net of vacancy at 7%, property management at 9%, maintenance reserve at 5%, and property taxes at approximately $3,600 per year. The net operating income is approximately $13,000 to $15,000. Against a mortgage payment of approximately $1,600 per month on the financed portion, the net cash flow is approximately $250 to $350 per month per unit in a duplex configuration. This is not extraordinary cash flow. It is not the 8 to 10% net yield that was available in Murfreesboro in 2017, but it is positive, which distinguishes it from virtually every urban core Nashville market and from almost every Tier 1 and Tier 2 market in this analysis. In a market environment where cash flow positive real estate has become rare enough that investors are specifically seeking it, Murfreesboro and the Nashville 3 market broadly represents one of the more accessible entry points in the Southeast for a first or second investment property. Hendersonville presents a slightly different profile. Located northeast of Nashville along Old Hickory Lake, Hendersonville combines lake access with suburban family infrastructure in a way that produces a specific quality of life premium that its price does not yet fully reflect. The median home in Hendersonville in early 2026 is approximately $360,000. The school districts in Sumner County, which encompasses Hendersonville, consistently rank above the Tennessee state average and have been improving steadily as the population demographic has shifted toward higher income families over the past decade. What Hendersonville specifically offers that Murfreesboro does not is the lake. Old Hickory Lake is a Corps of Engineers reservoir that extends through the northern Nashville suburbs, offering boating, fishing, water sports, and the specific quality of life dimension that water access provides. For a family coming from a coastal city where proximity to water was part of the lifestyle, Hendersonville offers a version of that, not the ocean, but a large and genuinely beautiful lake, at a price point that makes the lifestyle available rather than aspirational. Gallatin, further northeast along the lake system, presents the most aggressive value case of any market in the broader Nashville area. Median home prices in Gallatin are approximately $290,000 to $320,000 in early 2026. The city is actively investing in downtown revitalization and has attracted a mix of Nashville commuters and local professionals. It is the earliest stage market in Nashville 3, which means the lowest prices and the highest potential appreciation, but also the least developed amenity infrastructure of the group. For an investor with a longer time horizon who wants to maximize the appreciation upside of the Nashville metro without paying Nashville prices, Gallatin presents the most compelling entry point. The risk is higher than Murfreesboro or Hendersonville because the amenity development is less certain. The potential return, if Gallatin's trajectory over the next decade mirrors what Hendersonville experienced in the past decade, is substantially higher. Smyrna, south of Murfreesboro and home to a major Nissan manufacturing plant that employs approximately 8,000 people directly and many thousands more indirectly in the supply chain, offers a specific economic stability that manufacturing anchors provide. The median home in Smyrna in early 2026 is approximately $325,000. The Nissan presence means that even in a scenario where Nashville's tech and knowledge worker migration slows, the manufacturing employment base continues to support housing demand. For an investor who wants cash flow stability over appreciation upside, the combination of Smyrna's manufacturing anchor, its sub-$350 median price, and its Rutherford County school access represents a defensible long-term position. Let me now address the school question in Nashville 3 directly, because it is the variable that most families will want to scrutinize before accepting the argument that the outer ring is the best place to land. Rutherford County schools, which serve Murfreesboro and Smyrna, have state test proficiency rates of approximately 67 to 72% on reading and math assessments. Sumner County schools, which serve Hendersonville and Gallatin, have proficiency rates of approximately 68 to 74%. Both are meaningfully above the Tennessee state average of approximately 52%. Both are above the national average for public schools. Neither is Williamson County at 84%. For a family coming from the San Francisco Unified School District, where the proficiency rate on comparable assessments is approximately 41%, Rutherford County or Sumner County represents a dramatic improvement regardless of how it compares to Williamson County. The relevant benchmark is not Franklin versus Murfreesboro in isolation. It is Murfreesboro versus wherever you are leaving. For the overwhelming majority of families leaving major coastal metros, Murfreesboro is substantially better. For a family coming from a high-performing suburban district, a Palo Alto, a Naperville, a Newton, Massachusetts, the comparison to Williamson County becomes more relevant. In those cases, the family needs to weigh the $15,000 to $25,000 per year financial advantage of Murfreesboro over Franklin against the school quality differential. For some families, the school quality differential will dominate the decision, and Franklin or Brentwood will be the right answer despite the higher cost. For families whose children are in the earlier elementary grades, where the developmental impact of school quality differences is less acute, the financial case for Murfreesboro is stronger. There is a point here that deserves specific mention because it is counterintuitive and consistently surprises people who encounter it. Research on the relationship between school district quality and family financial stress consistently shows that families who are financially comfortable, who have adequate savings, appropriate housing, and manageable monthly overhead, produce better academic outcomes for their children than financially stressed families in nominally higher-ranked districts. The anxiety and cognitive load of chronic financial pressure affects parenting quality, household stability, and the kind of engaged investment in children's education that produces outcomes. A family in Murfreesboro with 46% savings rate, minimal financial stress, and full capacity to invest in extracurriculars, tutoring, enrichment activities, and the general infrastructure of childhood development may produce better outcomes for their children than the same family stretched financially in a Williamson County house they can barely afford. This is not an argument for ignoring school quality. It is an argument for including financial stability in the quality of life calculation for families, rather than treating school district ranking as the only variable that matters. Let me now give you the specific verdict for each profile, because Nashville is a city where the right answer varies significantly, depending on who you are and what you are trying to accomplish. For the remote worker or knowledge professional arriving from a coastal city with a salary between $100,000 and $150,000, single or partnered without children, whose primary goals are financial transformation and eventual home ownership, Nashville 3, specifically Murfreesboro, is the recommendation. The down payment timeline is fastest, the savings rate improvement is most dramatic, the cash flow on a future investment property is viable, and the quality of life in Murfreesboro, the university town energy, the improving restaurant and retail scene, the physical environment, the manageable scale, is more than sufficient for someone who values financial breathing room alongside lifestyle quality. The commute to Nashville proper for social and cultural purposes is 30 minutes and entirely manageable. For the investor arriving with capital and a portfolio-building agenda, evaluating Nashville specifically as an investment market, the recommendation is Nashville 3 with a specific strategy. Single-family homes in the $270,000 to $350,000 range in Murfreesboro and Smyrna for positive cash flow. Long-term hold positions in Gallatin and Hendersonville for appreciation upside as those markets continue to absorb Nashville's spillover migration. And avoid Nashville 1 and Nashville 2 for income-producing investment unless you have a specific value-add thesis that justifies the entry price. For the family with children in elementary and middle school, arriving from a coastal city with a combined household income above $160,000, whose primary goal is the best possible school district within a financially sustainable structure, the recommendation is more nuanced. Franklin is the premium answer if the household has the capital to reach the entry point in a reasonable timeline. A Murfreesboro in Rutherford County is the financially optimal answer if the household is earlier in its wealth-building journey and needs to prioritize savings rate over school ranking. Brentwood is the answer if the household has existing equity or capital that makes the higher entry price immediately accessible and if school district quality is the primary decision variable. For the investor or relocator who has been reading Nashville content for 2 years and is worried they have missed the opportunity entirely, the answer is that you have missed Nashville 1's appreciation cycle, which peaked in 2022 and will not repeat at the same magnitude in the foreseeable future. You have not missed Nashville 3, where the price-to-fundamentals ratio remains more favorable than any comparable market in the broader region. The window in Murfreesboro and Gallatin is narrowing. The data shows migration inflows accelerating into Rutherford and Sumner counties as Nashville proper prices push more buyers into the outer ring, but it has not closed. Now let me address something that comes up in every Nashville conversation, and that deserves a direct answer rather than deflection. The cost of living increase. Nashville in 2026 is not the cheap city it was in 2015. Restaurants have priced up. Groceries are higher than they were. Entertainment costs have increased. The general consumer price level in Nashville has risen substantially as higher income residents have arrived and established demand for premium goods and services. If you are moving to Nashville expecting a dramatically lower cost of living on every dimension, you will be surprised. The cost of living advantage of Nashville over major coastal cities in 2026 is concentrated in 2 specific categories: housing and taxes. On everything else, groceries, restaurants, entertainment, healthcare, Nashville has converged significantly toward the national average and in some cases toward the upper end of it. The financial case for Nashville is real, but it is a housing and tax case, not a generalized cheapness case. Model your budgets accordingly. The healthcare dimension is worth a specific mention. Nashville is home to what many consider the largest concentration of healthcare company headquarters in the United States. HCA Healthcare, the largest for-profit hospital company in the world, is headquartered there. Envision Healthcare, Acadia Healthcare, Change Healthcare, dozens of major healthcare corporations have their corporate presence in Nashville. This has two implications. First, if your professional background is in healthcare administration, healthcare technology, healthcare finance, or any of the adjacent fields that support a major corporate healthcare ecosystem, Nashville's job market depth in your sector is exceptional. Second, the healthcare employment base provides economic stability that reduces the cyclicality risk inherent in cities that are more concentrated in a single volatile sector like tech. The music industry, which is the most famous component of Nashville's identity, is less economically significant than it appears from the outside, but more economically significant than skeptics credit. The direct employment in music, recording studios, labels, live music venues, music production, is a relatively small share of the metropolitan economy. The indirect economic impact through tourism, entertainment spending, brand identity that attracts visitors and migrants, and the cultural vitality that a live music ecosystem creates in the fabric of daily urban life is substantially larger. Nashville's music industry is less important to the local economy than its brand would suggest, and more important to the quality of life and cultural texture of the city than the economic statistics capture. Let me close with something that is genuinely specific to Nashville, and that does not get said often enough in the migration analysis space. Nashville is a city with a specific character: Southern, musical, religious in the social fabric, in ways that are different from coastal metros, warm in the interpersonal sense, genuinely community-oriented in a way that urban environments often fail to be. For some people, that character is deeply appealing. For others, it is an adjustment, and neither reaction is wrong, but it is worth being honest with yourself about which category you fall into before you make a significant commitment to the city. The people who thrive most quickly in Nashville are not the people who were looking for New York with cheaper rent or San Francisco with no state income tax. Those people often arrive, spend 18 months in the urban core, finding it smaller than expected, and move on. The people who thrive most quickly are the people who engage with Nashville on its own terms, who go to live music at a honky-tonk not ironically but genuinely, who find the community of neighbors and the pace of the city appealing rather than limiting, who appreciate the specific texture of Southern urban life in a way that is authentic rather than condescending. The financial case for Nashville 3 is among the strongest of any market we analyze on this channel. The quality of life case for Nashville broadly is real. The cultural fit question is one only you can answer, and it is worth answering honestly before the moving truck arrives. Nashville appears on every list, but Nashville is 3 cities. The financial case for arriving at one of them in 2026 is compelling. The case for the other 2 is qualified. Knowing which one corresponds to your situation is the difference between this analysis and the list. Next week, we are going to look at what a $100,000 salary buys in 7 cities that keep appearing in our data as the best ratio markets in America in 2026. Not the most famous cities. The cities where the numbers are most favorable for someone earlier in their wealth-building journey. 7 specific cities, 7 specific financial models, 1 direct verdict per city. That analysis goes live next week. If you have been watching this channel and you have a city you want us to analyze, leave it in the comments. We prioritize based on where the search data shows people are actually trying to make decisions, and comments that name a specific city with a specific question move up the production queue. The research agenda here is driven by the decisions you are actually trying to make. See you next week. Before we go deeper into the investment analysis, I want to spend some time on the specific mechanism that turned Nashville from a value market into a premium market so quickly, because understanding the mechanism matters for understanding whether any similar transformation is still available to someone arriving today, and whether the outer ring markets will follow the same trajectory. The Nashville appreciation story between 2019 and 2022 was not random. It was the result of a specific set of forces converging simultaneously in a market that was structurally positioned to absorb them. Understanding those forces tells you something important about where equivalent opportunities exist right now, both within the Nashville metropolitan area and in other markets. The first force was the remote work decoupling. When the pandemic normalized remote work for a significant share of the knowledge worker population, It removed the geographic constraint that had previously made expensive coastal cities mandatory for high-earning professionals. A software engineer at a San Francisco company, earning $160,000, who could now work from anywhere, suddenly had access to every market in the country. But Nashville was among the first cities to capture significant inflows from this decoupling, because it had already been building its narrative, the music, the food, the no state income tax story, for years before the pandemic. The infrastructure of awareness existed. The remote work decoupling provided the trigger. The second force was the tax differential. California's 13.3% top marginal income tax rate, New York City's combined state and city income tax approaching 14% at higher incomes, Illinois's flat rate of 4.95% against Tennessee's 0. For a household earning $180,000 collectively, the move from California to Tennessee was worth approximately $14,000 per year in additional after-tax income before changing a single spending habit. That is a real and immediate financial benefit that is visible on the first paycheck after the move. It does not require patience or compounding to deliver value. It delivers on day one. The third force was the quality of life infrastructure that Nashville had built over the preceding decade. The restaurant scene was genuinely excellent by 2019. The Predators and the Titans provided major sports anchors. The live music ecosystem was one of the best in the world. Vanderbilt University provided the intellectual anchor that university towns rely on. The physical environment of the city, the rolling Tennessee hills, the Cumberland River, the green spaces of Percy Warner Park and Radnor Lake was underappreciated nationally, but genuinely exceptional. All of this was waiting to be discovered at scale. The remote work decoupling brought the discovery. The fourth force was self-reinforcing momentum. Once Nashville started appearing in relocation articles, the awareness created migration. The migration improved the city's amenity offering. The improved amenity offering justified more migration. The increased migration drove up prices. The rising prices generated more media attention. The media attention drove further migration. The positive feedback loops in city growth are well documented in urban economics, and Nashville's 2019 to 2022 cycle was a textbook example of one operating at maximum velocity. The reason this matters for Nashville 3 in 2026 is that the same four forces that drove Nashville's transformation are now visible in the outer ring at an earlier stage. Remote work decoupling is already established. The people who moved to Nashville from coastal cities and discovered that Murfreesboro is 30 minutes away and costs $125,000 less are now starting to make the further move. The Tennessee tax advantage applies identically to Murfreesboro, Hendersonville, and Gallatin as it does to the Gulch. The quality of life infrastructure in the outer ring, while less developed than Nashville proper, has been improving steadily as higher income households arrive and create demand for better restaurants, better retail, and better community programming. And the self-reinforcing momentum is beginning to build. Rutherford County population growth in 2024 and 2025 accelerated as Nashville proper prices pushed buyers outward. The analogy is not perfect. Murfreesboro will not replicate the Nashville trajectory in the same time frame or at the same appreciation rate. The outer ring lacks the music industry anchor and the national brand recognition that Nashville had before the migration wave hit. But the fundamentals for sustained above-average appreciation in Nashville 3 over the next 5 to 7 years are present in the data, and the entry price remains favorable enough that even modest appreciation produces meaningful equity for early buyers. Let me now build the 5-year wealth projection for someone who buys in Nashville 3 in 2026, because the number is the most persuasive argument and it deserves specificity. A couple buys a median home in Murfreesboro at $345,000 in early 2026, 20% down, $69,000. Financed portion, $276,000. Monthly payment at 6.5% on a 30-year fixed, approximately $1,745. Principal and interest. Property taxes Rutherford County, approximately $2,800 per year or $233 per month. Homeowners insurance, approximately $125 per month. Total monthly housing cost, approximately $2,103. At their combined income of $175,000, their monthly savings capacity after housing and all other essential expenses is approximately $6,700 per month, or approximately $80,000 per year. Some of that is emergency fund. Some of that is retirement contributions. Some of that, let us say $40,000 per year, goes into a taxable investment account at 7% annual return. Year 1. The home appreciates at a conservative 4% baseline rate. Value at year 1 end, approximately $359,000. Equity, $69,000 down, plus approximately $17,000 in principal paydown, plus $13,800 in appreciation. Year 1 equity, approximately $99,800. Investment account, approximately $42,800 at year-end including returns. And total net worth billed in year 1 from this analysis, approximately $142,600. Year 2. Home value approximately $373,000. Principal paydown cumulative approximately $35,000. Equity approximately $144,000. Investment account at 2 years, approximately $89,000. Total net worth from this analysis at year 2, approximately $233,000. Year 3 through year 5. If the Nashville 3 appreciation accelerates modestly to 6% annually, as migration inflows into Rutherford County continue, which the current data supports as a reasonable base case. Home value at year 5 approximately $461,000. Principal paydown cumulative approximately $58,000. Equity at year 5, approximately $174,000 in appreciation plus $58,000 in principal paydown plus the original $69,000. Total equity, approximately $301,000. Investment account at 5 years at 7% annual return, approximately $236,000. Now, total net worth billed from this specific analysis over 5 years, approximately $537,000. $537,000 in 5 years on a combined income of $175,000, from a starting point of $69,000 in down payment capital. This is not a fantasy scenario. It is a model built with conservative appreciation assumptions on market data that currently supports them, with realistic savings rates that the cost environment in Murfreesboro makes achievable. For comparison, the same couple in San Francisco over the same 5 years, on the same combined income of $175,000, saves approximately $22,000 per year after the higher cost of living. 5-year savings, $110,000. No home purchased, no equity built, no investment returns on non-existent surplus. Net worth billed from this analysis over 5 years, approximately $115,000, including investment returns on accumulated savings, against Nashville 3's $537,000. The differential is $422,000 over 5 years from the same income. The entire difference is geographic. Now let me go back to the investor analysis and add some dimensions that the cap rate discussion alone does not capture. The most important metric for a real estate investor considering Nashville in 2026 is not the cap rate in isolation. It is the cap rate relative to the risk-adjusted alternative. A 6.5% cap rate in Murfreesboro competes with a 10-year Treasury yield of approximately 4.3%, a 200 basis point spread that compensates for the illiquidity, management burden, and specific risks of the real estate investment. Whether that spread is sufficient depends on how you assess those specific risks. The vacancy risk in Murfreesboro is relatively low. The Rutherford County rental market has a vacancy rate of approximately 5.2% as of early 2026, which is among the lower vacancy rates in the broader Nashville metropolitan area. Middle Tennessee State University generates consistent demand for rentals in the immediate vicinity of the campus. The manufacturing employment base from Nissan and the growing healthcare employment base create demand from workers who prefer renting to owning, particularly early in their tenure in the area. The overall demand picture for rentals in Murfreesboro is solid. The maintenance and management risk is real and consistent with any rental investment. Rutherford County, unlike some speculative markets, has an established ecosystem of property managers, contractors, and service providers that makes remote ownership manageable. Property management in the area typically costs 8 to 9% of collected rents, which is at the lower end of the national range. The availability of qualified tradespeople is better than in markets that have grown more recently and lack the established contractor infrastructure. The appreciation risk, the possibility that Nashville 3 does not appreciate as modeled, is the most significant risk and the one most honest analysts acknowledge. Appreciation projections are inherently uncertain. The Murfreesboro market has performed well historically, and the fundamentals argue for continued above-average performance. But real estate markets do not move in straight lines, and there are scenarios in which the Nashville metro area experiences a demand slowdown that moderates outer ring appreciation. An investor who requires appreciation to justify the position is taking on risk that the cash flow model does not fully compensate for. An investor who underwrites the position to work on cash flow alone, treating appreciation as optionality rather than necessity, is in a structurally safer position. The tax advantages of Tennessee real estate ownership deserve specific mention because they create an ongoing cost advantage that other states do not provide. Tennessee has no state income tax on ordinary income, which means rental income generated by a Tennessee investment property is not subject to state income tax for a Tennessee resident. For an investor who has relocated to Tennessee specifically, this creates a meaningful cost advantage relative to the same investment held by a California or New York resident who must pay state income tax on the rental income. The effective after-tax yield on a Murfreesboro investment property is higher for a Tennessee-based investor than for a California-based investor holding the same property, purely from the state tax treatment of rental income. Property taxes in Rutherford County are approximately 94 cents per $100 of assessed value, which translates to an effective rate of approximately 0.8 to 0.9% of market value. This is meaningfully lower than Cook County, Illinois at 2.1%, somewhat lower than comparable North Carolina counties at approximately 1%, and roughly comparable to similar Tennessee counties. The property tax burden does not create the yield drag that it creates in high-tax jurisdictions like Illinois or New Jersey. Let me now address the Nashville 3 story from Stephanie's perspective specifically. What does daily life actually look like for a family with children who has chosen Murfreesboro over Franklin as their Nashville landing point? The typical day-to-day life for a family in a good Murfreesboro neighborhood has most of the elements that families from coastal cities are seeking. The streets in established Murfreesboro neighborhoods like Blackman, Siegel, and Oakland areas have sidewalks, mature trees, and the physical character of established residential development. The youth sports infrastructure is well developed. Soccer leagues, baseball leagues, swim teams, tennis programs, all of the organized athletics infrastructure that parents with children rely on. The community event calendar is active, driven in part by the MTSU presence and in part by the growing young family population that has been arriving from the Nashville core over the past several years. The restaurant scene in Murfreesboro has improved substantially since 2020. It is not the Gulch. It is not 12 South. But it is not what it was 5 years ago either. There are now multiple genuinely good independent restaurants, several coffee shops of the quality that coastal transplants expect, a farmer's market, and the beginning of the kind of independent retail district that signals a city in the middle of a quality-of-life upgrade rather than a city that has fully arrived. For a family whose dining-out expectations are calibrated to the quality available in major metros, Murfreesboro will require adjustment. It will not require the level of adjustment it would have required 5 years ago. The commute question is the most common concern that families considering Murfreesboro raise, and it deserves an honest answer rather than minimization. The drive from central Murfreesboro to the Gulch in Nashville is approximately 30 to 35 minutes on Interstate 24 in moderate traffic and approximately 45 to 55 minutes in peak morning or afternoon traffic if you are commuting during the traditional rush. For someone who commutes daily, this is a real consideration, and one that should be modeled honestly rather than dismissed. For someone who commutes 2 or 3 times per week, which is increasingly the pattern even for non-fully remote workers, the commute is manageable. For someone who is fully remote and uses the Nashville commute only for social and recreational purposes, the distance is minimal. The key insight about Murfreesboro's commute relationship to Nashville is that the commute goes in both directions. People who live in Murfreesboro drive to Nashville. Increasingly, activities, events, and social infrastructure exist in Murfreesboro itself, reducing the frequency with which the Nashville commute is necessary for quality-of-life purposes. The MTSU presence means live music, film events, academic programming, and cultural events exist locally. The improving restaurant and retail scene means more of the consumer spending that previously required a Nashville trip can now be done locally. The commute will always be a factor. It is becoming a less dominant factor as Murfreesboro builds out its own amenity offering. One more dimension that deserves specific mention in the Nashville analysis: the geographic diversity of the housing stock and what it means for finding the right property at the right price. Nashville 3 has a wider range of property types and price points than the urban core Nashville market, which is heavily concentrated in condos, townhouses, and single-family homes above $400,000. In Murfreesboro and Hendersonville, you can find everything from new construction subdivision homes at $300,000 to established brick ranch houses from the 1980s at $250,000 to larger custom homes on small acreage at $400,000 to $500,000. This diversity of options means that the entry point can be calibrated to the buyer's specific capital position in a way that is not possible in a market where the cheapest viable option is already at $500,000. For a single professional moving alone, the $250,000 range in Murfreesboro opens possibilities that do not exist in Franklin or Nashville proper at any price. For a family that needs a 4-bedroom home with a yard, the $350,000 to $400,000 range in Murfreesboro delivers what the $400,000 to $500,000 range barely delivers in Franklin. The price compression of the Nashville 3 market relative to Nashville 1 and 2 creates a genuine matching between buyer capital and buyer need that the more expensive markets cannot offer. The Nashville story in 2026 is not the Nashville story of 2019. The window on Nashville 1 has closed. The window on Nashville 2 requires significant capital and is best suited for families with the means to reach a high entry point quickly. The window on Nashville 3 is open, is well supported by the data, and is the most actionable opportunity in the broader Nashville area for the profile of person, the relocating professional, the family in the early stages of wealth building, the investor looking for positive cash flow in a growing market. That makes up the majority of the next city audience. 3 Nashvilles, 3 different answers. The one that is right for you depends on your income, your capital, your family situation, and your timeline. But the number that connects all 3 analyses is the same. Tennessee's income tax rate is 0. Whatever version of Nashville you are in, that advantage applies. And in a world where the financial cost of living in an expensive state has never been higher, a permanent 0 on your state income tax line is not a small thing. It is 4, 8, a $12,000 or $14,000 a year that compounds silently in your favor, year after year, regardless of which part of Nashville you call home. That is the analysis. 3 Nashvilles. Your job is to figure out which one is yours. There is a question underneath all of this that has not been addressed directly, and that I want to spend some time on before closing, because it is the question that determines whether the analysis above is actually useful to you, or whether it remains interesting but abstract. The question is this: how do you actually evaluate a Nashville 3 neighborhood before you commit to it, and what are the specific signals you are looking for in the data? The answer matters because Nashville 3 is not homogeneous. Within Murfreesboro, within Hendersonville, within Gallatin and Smyrna, there are significant variations in neighborhood quality, school assignment, commute characteristics, and appreciation trajectory. Moving to Murfreesboro generally is not the same decision as moving to a specific part of Murfreesboro. The analytical framework that has served throughout this video needs to go one level deeper for the decision to be actionable. The first signal is school assignment, which in Tennessee is almost entirely determined by address. Before you make any offer on a property in Nashville 3, you run the address through the Rutherford County or Sumner County School District Assignment tool and confirm which specific elementary, middle, and high school the address is zoned for. Within Rutherford County, the variation in school performance between the best-performing and worst-performing schools is significant. The Blackman Cluster, the Siegel Cluster, and the Oakland Cluster in Murfreesboro consistently produce the best standardized test results within the county. The schools in certain parts of Central and North Murfreesboro are lower performing. This variation is not subtle. It is the kind of difference that matters for a family with children. Know your specific school assignment before you fall in love with a specific property. The second signal is the direction of neighborhood change over the past 3 to 5 years. This is observable in 2 data sets that are publicly available. First, look at the trend in median home prices by neighborhood over 3 to 5 years in Zillow or Redfin data. Neighborhoods that have been appreciating at above county average rates for 3 or more consecutive years are in an active upgrade cycle. Neighborhoods that have been appreciating at below county average rates may be stable or may be in a relative decline that reflects something specific about the neighborhood's trajectory. Second, look at the business permits data for the commercial districts adjacent to the neighborhood you are considering. New restaurant permits, new retail permits, in new business formation. These are leading indicators of neighborhood improvement that precede price appreciation in the residential market by 12 to 24 months. The third signal is the specific commute test, which sounds obvious but is consistently underdone. Do the commute you will actually do at the time you will actually do it. Drive from the specific address you are considering to your workplace or to Nashville proper during morning rush hour on a weekday, not on a Saturday afternoon in light traffic. The actual commute you will experience 200 days per year. For Murfreesboro properties south of Medical Center Parkway, the Interstate 24 on-ramp access is typically clean, and the drive to the Gulch or downtown Nashville in morning traffic averages 40 to 50 minutes. For properties in North Murfreesboro, the routing through surface streets before highway access can add 10 to 15 minutes to that baseline. The difference matters. The fourth signal is the rental market temperature in the specific sub-area of Nashville 3 you are considering. If you are buying with any intention of eventually renting the property, whether as an investment from day one or as a future rental if your circumstances change, you want to know the specific rental demand and pricing for properties comparable to what you are buying. The Murfreesboro rental market near MTSU is different from the Murfreesboro rental market in the Blackman area. And the MTSU adjacent market has higher demand from students and younger tenants with the volatility that student housing inherently carries. The Blackman area has more stable family tenants with longer average tenancies but potentially lower absolute rent. Neither is wrong. They suit different investment strategies. The fifth signal is the new construction pipeline in the area you are considering. Rutherford County has approved significant new residential development over the past several years, and the pace of new construction in certain sub-areas of Murfreesboro is high. New construction is generally positive for neighborhood appreciation in the long term as it signals developer confidence. In the short term, a large pipeline of new construction coming online within the next 12 to 24 months in the same sub-area as an existing home you are considering can create near-term price competition that moderates appreciation. If you are buying an existing home in a submarket where 500 new units are being built nearby, the near-term price trajectory is different from a submarket where new construction has slowed due to lot constraints. These 5 signals – school assignment, neighborhood change direction, specific commute test, rental market temperature, and new construction pipeline – are the due diligence framework for evaluating any specific property in Nashville 3. None of them require professional expertise to access. All of them are available in public data sources, online mapping tools, and direct driving tests. Doing this work before committing to a specific address significantly improves the quality of the decision. Let me add one more dimension to the Nashville analysis that has been implicit throughout, but deserves to be stated explicitly: the role of Nashville's geographic position within the broader American Southeast. Nashville sits approximately 3 hours from Atlanta, 2 hours from Chattanooga, 4 hours from Charlotte, 3 hours and a half from Memphis, and 3 hours from Louisville. This geographic centrality within the Southeast is not incidental. It is part of why Nashville functions as a regional economic hub rather than just a city. Corporate decisions to locate regional headquarters, distribution centers, healthcare networks, and financial services operations in Nashville are partly driven by this central position and the access it provides to the broader Southeast market. For an individual relocator, Nashville's geographic position means that the broader Southeast is accessible. A family in Murfreesboro who wants to spend a weekend in Chattanooga's outdoor recreation environment is 2 hours away. A professional based in Nashville who needs to make a day trip to Atlanta for client meetings is 3 hours away or one short flight. The regional connectivity of Nashville adds a dimension of flexibility to life in the metropolitan area that is not available in more geographically isolated markets. This connectivity also supports the argument that Nashville's economic growth is more durable than growth driven by a single employer or a single sector. When any individual component of Nashville's economy, the music industry, the tech sector, the healthcare headquarters concentration, experiences cyclical stress, the other components provide ballast. And Nashville's position as the effective capital of the American Southeast gives it an economic anchor that is less dependent on any single corporate or sector decision than a city like, say, a manufacturing mono-industry town would be. The counter-argument to Nashville's durability is the one that a careful analyst has to acknowledge honestly. If the trend of large companies relocating from coastal cities to Nashville slows, if return-to-office policies reduce the geographic flexibility that drove the 2020 to 2023 migration wave, if Nashville prices rise to the point where the financial advantage over remaining in a coastal city narrows substantially, then the demand driver that has supported Nashville's growth could moderate more quickly than the city's organic economic fundamentals alone would sustain. This is a real risk. It is not a reason to avoid Nashville entirely, but it is a reason to prefer markets within Nashville that are priced to work on fundamental economics rather than markets that are priced to require continued migration wave momentum to justify. Nashville 3 is priced to work on fundamental economics at current prices and current rents. Nashville 1 is not. That distinction is the most important analytical judgment in this entire video. The summary is this. Nashville in 2026 is 3 markets. Nashville 1 has been discovered, priced, and celebrated. It offers lifestyle, but not financial transformation for most people arriving today. Nashville 2 offers exceptional school districts and family quality of life at a premium entry price that is accessible for some profiles and not others. Nashville 3. Murfreesboro, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Smyrna offers the financial transformation that Nashville 1 provided to its buyers in 2019, in a market that is earlier in its appreciation cycle, at a price that is accessible to a wider range of buyers, with school districts and quality of life that exceed what families are leaving behind in most coastal markets. The right Nashville for you depends on where you are in your financial journey, what you are trying to build, and which of these 3 very different markets aligns with your specific circumstances. What this video has tried to do is give you enough precision to ask that question about your own situation, rather than treating Nashville as a single market with a single answer. Nashville is not one answer, it is 3, and knowing which one is yours is the analysis that makes the difference. One final thought before closing, because it is the thought that this entire analysis has been building toward without stating directly. The migration data for Rutherford County, Sumner County, and the Nashville Outer Ring shows accelerating inflows in 2024 and 2025. LinkedIn inbound searches from San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago to the Nashville MSA, a reliable early indicator of migration intent, increased by 31% year over year in 2025. Days on market for properties in the 250 to 350,000 range in Murfreesboro dropped from 32 days in early 2024 to 19 days in early 2026. These are the precursor signals that in retrospect define the beginning of a wave. The people who recognized those signals in Nashville proper in 2018 and 2019, before the national articles and the top 10 lists, built real wealth. The people who recognized them in Raleigh in 2018 built real wealth. The people who are recognizing them in Nashville 3 in 2026 have the same opportunity, at a different price level and with different absolute magnitude, but with the same fundamental dynamic. A market where the fundamentals support the price. The price has not yet caught up with the fundamentals, and the leading indicators suggest that closing of that gap has begun. That window does not stay open forever. Every market that has been discovered was once undiscovered. Every market that appears on the list was once off the list. The time between when the data first shows the signal and when the national media confirms it is the window. Nashville 3 is in that window now. What you do with that information is yours to decide. The data says what it says. See you next week.